The day's here. Let's get it. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Shoot More. If you're new, welcome. If you've seen some of the other videos and you're not yet subscribed, go ahead and hit that button right now. This is it. This is part 4 of the Two Rivers series. We are here in Ponca, Arkansas. Today was our train-up day, and they got a couple things that I think we need to talk through before we head into the match tomorrow. Overall, things went pretty well, but there's been an elephant in the room that I haven't really let you guys in on. The barrel has been slowing down. And it's been slowing down since we first did load dev. The first time I did a load workup at that powder charge, it was around 2,700 feet per second, and the barrel has slowed down to 2,660 average at this point. Every time I've gone out to practice over the last 3 weeks, I've had to readjust the dope in my Kestrel to account for the slower velocity. So it's kind of been in the back of my head that this was going to be a problem going into this weekend. If that barrel was showing signs of decreasing velocity and potentially burning out already, I figured shooting a match with it would probably expedite that process. But after going through the train up today, when I got here, my zero was spot on. Velocities remained consistent from the first round that I fired all the way until the end of the day when I rechecked velocity. My dope lined up perfectly all the way out to 1,000 yards, and they even had a side stage where you were able to shoot out to, I think it was like 1,800 yards, and we made a couple connections there. So that was pretty cool. Makes me feel a little bit more comfortable about what's going on with the rifle, so that's one less thing I'm gonna have to worry about tomorrow. So based on what I saw today, I think the big challenge for tomorrow is going to be getting my bipod set up correctly so that the elevation is right. We're shooting on the side of a hill, you know, and a lot of the stages are prone. If you are able to go into the start of that stage with your bipod set correctly and you're able to spend the time actually engaging the targets and not readjusting your bipod, that's going to be the ticket for tomorrow. I don't have a lot of experience with this Ckyepod doing that, so it's going to be kind of a crapshoot. We'll see what happens. We're just going to figure it out. So I had intentions of trying to make this a little bit more of a vlog style today, and frankly, there just wasn't a lot of room on the firing line. The spot where we had to set up our rifles to zero was maybe 5 yards wide, and then they had like a 20-foot trailer that we were shooting off of for the confirmation targets. So it was really tight. There were a bunch of shooters that were trying to get pushed through, so I didn't want to try and set up cameras and just be in the way. So the venue itself, we haven't seen a lot of. We had the check-in area on top of one of the hills. The area that we're shooting tomorrow is a totally different part of the ranch. None of the competitors have had access to the shooting area, so we're going in pretty blind. We did get the match book today. There's only one stage that I think we're shooting off of a prop. Everything else is prone or modified prone, so that's gonna make it interesting for sure. There's a couple different valleys that cut through the property, so there's gonna be a couple different winds to manage depending on the direction and what Mother Nature decides she wants to throw at us. But it's getting late. I need to finish packing all of this gear. We have to be at the parking spot at 6 a.m. and then they're gonna shuttle us down to locations. So I will catch you guys in the morning. Hey guys, so it's day 2. I tried to film yesterday, but Mother Nature threw us a little bit of a curveball and most of the day looked like this.
I don't think that's gonna happen, dude. We're not gonna get to finish this fucking day. Shoot it on the ground. Motherfucker, shoot it on the ground. It gotta move. I'm not the plate off the impact.
It rained on us, and I mean rained on us for all but maybe an hour. So I tried to film. I had some issues with my trigger cam. Because it was so dark, I couldn't see, so that came off. I was still going to try and film on the big camera. Then it started to downpour, and at that point, I didn't want to risk ruining my equipment, so the camera got stowed and we just focused on shooting. Overall, the day went, it went. I learned a lot, and I've said that from the beginning. We are either going to do well or we're going to learn, and we learned. I think I'll save a lot of the debrief for when I've had a chance to get some sleep, and we'll kind of run through that at the end of this video. This is just going to be one long Two Rivers match video at this point, but we didn't finish shooting until 7 p.m. yesterday. I didn't get back to my house until 11, and then I was up until 1:30 cleaning gear. We're here, we're on time, we've cleaned the rifle, it's shooting well enough, we've lost another 10 feet per second on the average, so I think the barrel is definitely slowing down, so we're gonna have to navigate that. But I'm confident going into today. We've practiced positionally a lot, so I think I'm gonna have a better chance of making some decent scores today. We're gonna go ahead and get our shit set up, and I will catch you guys on the firing line. Alright, starting off on stage 15, rooftop cars, 3 positions. You're going to start on one side, engage the close red car at 420 yards, 3 targets. Move, engage the middle red car, 478 yards, 3 targets. Move again the other side, engage the gray car, 4 targets, 537. Biggest struggle here was getting stable. Learned pretty quick that I can't shoot this the same way that I do in Rimfire. I think the best way to probably shoot this with a Centerfire rifle is bipod and bag or pump pillow of some sort. Did okay just bagging it, but I was having a hard time kind of figuring out what to do with my body. So I think going forward, I'm going to practice, at least for Centerfire, bipod front, some sort of bag in the rear. That way you've got 2 points contact and you're a little bit more stable. Alright, stage 16, big small. I make a pretty hefty mistake here, as you will see in 3, 2, 1. Oh no, the chamber flag's in. I didn't actually make my rifle ready. Rip the chamber flag out, toss the mag in, and then it's 2 shots per position, 5 positions, big then small on each. So we end up cleaning it up. We get the rifle in the ready state. I think we end up dropping 1 here. Most of this is modified prone, at least the first 2 positions on the spools. The 2 tank traps were in the cradle, so you're pretty stable there. You've got enough to brace against. And then the last position was the log, probably the least stable of the bunch, but still not too bad. Having some problems consistently inputting myself into the rifle, driving it, making sure the recoil is consistent. Kind of having a hard time seeing what's going on downrange and making corrections, you know, if I'm left or right of plate. That is a pretty common theme throughout the day. If I was hitting the plate, I couldn't center up because I wasn't sure where I was hitting. Alright, stage 17, cattle troop. It's an IPSC troop line. 5 targets, 5 positions, 2 shots per position. You have to change the position each time you change targets. Getting the wind call, I think, was probably the hardest part here. Didn't see the first miss. I don't know that I really make a correction. I think I just send same. I see the miss on that one. It's off right, so then I know that I need to hold a little bit more on the next target. Something I don't do a good job of in Rimfire is utilizing wind brackets. That's something these guys do really well. Going into a troop line stage like this, you know, they've got a wind bracket for, you know, 4, 6, and 8 miles an hour, let's say, depending on the conditions. It's not really something I do in Rimfire, and probably would benefit me on the troop line stages. Definitely would have benefited me here, because there were quite a few troop lines that we shot over the course of the second day it Twisted. So it's definitely something I want to work on and kind of figure out how to approach that going forward.
Without touching anybody. And then when you bump into me and touch me, you'd be like, yo, man, you're tempering my foul. Impact! Impact! Impact time! Shooting you today, Dwayne. Just do like I've practiced for 6, sir.
Alright, stage 18, TBP Barricade. Shooter will build a position, engage the D4 rack at 483 with 2 shots. Largest target, repeat sequence with new position, the next smaller target each time. Shooter will then reuse, for the 5th position, shooter will then reuse the previous position, but not consecutive, to engage the B4 Diamond, which is a separate berm at 800 yards with 2 rounds. Again, having problems consistently driving the rifle, it was really hard for me to see my misses on the berm. It was very dark with the trigger cam, and it was in a shaded part of the trees anyway, so I was just kind of guessing on what I was doing for the wind hold. Not successfully, but, you know, we'll learn. We'll get there. So up until this point for the troop lines, I've been relying on a data card and not actually utilizing the turret tape, and that bites me here. So I dial to what I think is 6.5, get on target at that far target, make the shot. Wind was good, but it's low, and I go, man, that was like a mil low. Realize I'm a mil low on the dial. I should have been at 6.5. I was at 5.5. Make the correction, get the impact. After this, I started using the turret tape. It's there. It's the tool. It is faster. Why not use it? Ready? Stage 19 troop trailer. This was fun. This was the only stage that I cleaned for the weekend, actually. And that was likely because it was a reshoot. The squad got out of order when scoring. Partially my fault, partially their fault, but everybody agreed, just let me reshoot it. And I was able to walk away with a clean. You start out of the trailer with all equipment in the trailer, you jump up, and then you shoot the troop line. 1 shot each target out and then back. So 10 rounds total.
Impact! 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 Impact!
20 rocks, you had 5 sets of predator-prey targets. You had to engage them big to small, near to far. I set on glass for, 4 or 5 shooters before I was up. I knew the order, everything was great. Got my rifle ready to shoot, jump up there, timer went beep, and my mind went blank. Not remembering my cues to like which targets I need to engage and like what my landmarks were. So you see me having to like zoom out to find the targets to confirm that I'm actually on the correct targets. I'm definitely starting to feel the fatigue and the flinch at this point. I think I was flinching all day actually watching back on the footage, because there were a couple shots that I pulled on that first and second stage that were just bad trigger pulls. So all those issues are compounding at this point, and then for the last target engagement, I actually don't swing enough right, and I engage the wrong target. So. Stage 12 pipe troop, another troop line on the berms over on A. This was actually a pretty unique shooting situation. I guess this is what I'm talking about with like everybody kind of comes together and helps each other as a squad. This solution, the double bag solution, was something that some of the other shooters earlier had come up with, and it just kind of got carried down for each shooter because it worked. We didn't think that there was enough room to utilize a bipod at an angle on the tube, so they elected for a double bag approach off of the top. Honestly, after shooting off of those 2 bad bags with the glass fill, I'm really impressed, and I want to pick one up. I like my Game Changer medium, but the rifle just settled into those bags a lot better. I don't know that it'll necessarily replace, the medium as my primary bag, but I think for certain props like this where you need to get it flat, I think that is definitely a benefit to the bad design.
I guess it led up there.
Alright, PRS Barricade, skill stage, time stage, 2 targets. Got a little bit of a pan between the 2. One was at 400 yards, the other was at 411 yards. That's important because you have to put another 10th in your data or hold up. I do not. Really starting to struggle with remembering the little cues at this point in the day. Just trying to, it's taking a lot of my mental energy just to like get the rifle set, steady, and level. I'm not remembering everything else that goes along with executing a good shot. So, and it's showing. I think we end up dropping 3 here. See, again, I flinched like crazy. I dropped it low and right. You can see it on the camera before I even pulled the trigger. My body's just anticipating. So we got some work to do, for sure.
Yeah, I go. Hit.
One hit?
Yeah. It shot it way. I watched this trace. It went half a mil left. Yeah, that last one's an hit.
7 hits, sir. 7 hits.
Yeah.
Last stage of the day for us, 14 Leupold Barricade. You've got 5 positions and you're just engaging a KYL type target array at 561 yards. I had the idea in my head that I would go high so that I could avoid this position. I don't know why I then went to the one position that I wanted to avoid. Brain fog, maybe not paying attention. I was pretty tired at this point. After I got into the position, I realized what was going on, kind of fuss at myself, move to the more stable position, and then carry on. Some of the guys shot this with a bag. Some of the guys shot this rear tripod. I think rear tripod definitely would have been more stable, especially this late in the day, given, you know, just how tired you are. Probably take a little bit more of you out of the equation, but I didn't want to have to deal with the tripod. And I'll be honest, at this point, I kind of just wanted to be done. So tried my best to kind of keep my head in the game, you know, do the best that I could all the way till the end. But spirits were fleeting at this point.
All nice and clean. That target's like the size of a fucking ice cream sandwich.
It is Friday, September 26th at this time of recording. I've edited most of this video at this point, and I've had time to, I guess, digest what happened last weekend. And over the course of editing the video, I realized there's some gaps in the timeline that I didn't do a good job of explaining. So I just want to make sure you guys have a holistic idea of how this weekend went. So Friday of last week, I left my house at 9 o'clock in the morning. I had about a 3-hour drive to get to the train up location. I got there around noon with stops, and it was beautiful weather. Sunny, mid 80s, light breeze, mostly blue skies. It was just beautiful weather. We were able to confirm the rifle zero. We were able to shoot out to 1,000 yards on confirmation targets. Everything lined up great. The dope was good. The Kestrel was on. I had checked the weather before I left, and it said that Friday was the day that we were supposed to get the rain, not Saturday. And the important part of this story that I left out is once I got into the area, I didn't have cell service. So it was totally blind. The cabin that we stayed at was supposed to have Wi-Fi, but it didn't work very well. I couldn't get anything to really load. I had no idea what I was walking into. Saturday morning, I woke up at 5, got the truck loaded, everything packed up, and then you had to be at the location by 6 a.m. Parked our trucks, grabbed our gear, hopped on a 5th-wheel trailer that took us 10 minutes down the road, dropped us off, and then we walked into a lower part of a valley, and that's where the firing line was. Now, when we first stepped off the trailer, it was still pretty nice out. It really was a beautiful spot. You walk down, you get your stuff set up at your stations, everybody met up for the safety brief, everything went great. Quick zero, warm up the barrel with a couple rounds, and then we headed to our stages to start the day. As soon as we got to our stages, you could tell the weather was definitely changing. We started to have some overcast clouds roll in, and then the mist started. So the first problem on stage 1 that I ran into was I didn't have an SD card in the trigger cam. Normally not a problem. I carry spares, but they were in my camera bag, which was at my truck. I got through the first stage, ended up realizing with how overcast it was becoming, I was gonna have a really hard time seeing the targets as it was, let alone with the trigger cam making things even darker. I made the decision, trigger camera's coming off, we're gonna try and record on the big cam, but next stage, it starts raining. I don't mind filming in the rain with my gear if it's misting on and off or if we're under a canopy. But if it's just a straight, heavy, soaking rain, I don't wanna damage my equipment. And that's kind of what it was. So I put the cameras away, and at that point, I just focused on shooting. So really focusing in on gear issues, I'm very happy that I bought that Ckyepod double pull. There were a couple stages where I used all of the elevation that it had, legs in, fully extended as much as possible just to reach the top of the target. But the problem was knowing what elevation to set it at for the stage that we were shooting. There were several stages where I burned a bunch of time trying to adjust the bipod so that I could either get the rear of the rifle, you know, appropriately heighted to use the bag. I think that just comes with practice. I hadn't really practiced a lot of prone. The prone I have practiced is relatively flat. We have just a flat range here. There's not really a lot of elevation that you could practice. The second thing that became apparent is the other squads were using tripods a lot more than we were. Now, I shot with Zane and he ended up taking the win, so you didn't need to shoot with the tripod, but what guys were doing was they were collapsing the tripod down, and instead of getting down on the ground with a bipod, because the pans were so big, they were bagging it on top of the tripod head and then shooting off of the bag. There was one stage where I actually locked into the tripod. Definitely got some looks for that. I wasn't the only one, and it paid off mostly. I got some impacts that I think I probably wouldn't have otherwise. But it was, I mean, it had to be a 90-degree pan, you know, target 1, target 2, target 1, target 2, just bouncing back and forth. And there was a lot of that. You know, you would go from a target that's 700 yards on top of the hill where you're maxed out on elevation, and then you'd have to come all the way down to a target at 300 yards in the bottom of the valley. So you're going from like +5, +6 degrees to like -4 degrees. So you've got a 10-degree swing. It was tough. It was definitely tough. And we're just talking about day one at this point. Things were going pretty smoothly despite the rain. I was having a couple issues with light primer strikes. I don't know if it was just because the ammunition was wet. I tried my best to keep everything dry, but after probably halfway through the day, there was no dry. Nothing that we had with us was dry. I think I had 3 or 4 light primer strikes, and I have not had a single issue with that action or that ammunition. Otherwise, it hasn't happened since, and it didn't happen before when I was practicing out here leading up to the match. So the only thing that was different was the water, the weather, the rain, right? So I think that's probably where that came from. Along with the rain comes soft ground. And this is really, I think, was the biggest hang up for this match. We're shooting on a hillside. Everything got super muddy where we were shooting, but it also got muddy where the target stands were. And they were having a bunch of target failures, and it would require half of the line to go cold, sometimes more, depending on where it was at. They'd have to run over to the other side of the valley with a buggy, run down the hill, reset the target, and then come back. And each time we'd have to go cold, it would go cold for like 20, 25 minutes because of how long it took to get over there, get down to where the target was, and then get up and get out to a safe distance before they could make the range go hot again. And that's really the reason why we were there shooting until 7 o'clock. The morning, we had one rainstorm. Wasn't really severe weather. I wouldn't say the wind was crazy. It just caused some visibility issues, and it just got everybody wet. We had an hour break where the skies cleared up. It was pretty warm. Most of us dried out, and it kind of gave you a little bit of hope for how the rest of the day was going to go. And then we're shooting stage 10, which would have been halfway for us since we started on 5. And to our right, I'm just watching these dark gray black clouds roll in, and then you feel the wind, and then you feel the temperature drop, and then the bottom fell out, and then they started having the target failures. I think up until that point, spirits were pretty high. We definitely knew that we weren't going to get done at the forecasted 1 o'clock like everybody kind of thought we would, but we're thinking, all right, we'll be done by 4. And then that storm hit, and then it seemed like every other shooter, there was a target going down, and then 4 became 5, 5 became 6, 6 became 7. I think we fired our last shots at like 7:15. We packed up, walked back out to the side of the road to get picked up by a shuttle. I took a pretty nasty fall. I'm very lucky I didn't tear my ACL, but just the side of the mountain was just so muddy, and my trail shoes were not appropriate footwear for the conditions that we were shooting in, so lesson learned there. I was okay, gear's fine, controlled the rifle, just lesson learned. I think I need a little bit better footwear if I'm going to shoot some of these style matches going forward. We got up to the shuttle, everybody got on, Got back to the trucks probably 7:30-ish p.m. Mind you, the sun is going down. We're covered in mud, all of our gear's wet, so I throw all my crap in the bed of the truck. I had a change of clothes, change into something dry, and then make the trek back to Little Rock. And mind you, we're driving back through the mountains. It is pitch black. There's another storm rolling in. Every now and then you get lightning that'll crack. There's trees down across the highway. I had probably 6 or 7 people behind me that were convoying just because we all left at the same time and we're all going to the same place. So we get down the mountain, get to the interstate, smooth sailing from there. I get to my house around 11 p.m. I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm probably dehydrated, but I have to make the decision of how much gear do I get ready for tomorrow, because we still have to make day 2. Do I shoot a dirty rifle? Do I risk it getting rusty and the dirt in the action getting in the trigger and causing issues? So I made the call that I said I'm going to sacrifice some sleep. I'm going to clean my rifle and set my gear out to dry at minimum. And that way I have the best case, scenario for tomorrow in terms of equipment to not let me down and go forward. As I started looking over my rifle, I had a rain cover on it. I had one of those Coltac rain covers. It was still covered in mud. The Razor, which is a dark bronze, was a light tan from the amount of dirt on it. So I took everything apart. I didn't take the scope out of the mount, but the mount came off the action. I pulled the barrel action out of the chassis. And I'm sitting in my driveway at probably 12:30 midnight at this point with a hose and, a $3,000 optic, just spraying her down. Same thing with the chassis, just spraying the chassis down, wiping it down with some microfiber cloths, and then putting it back together. It was an experience. You can't help but laugh in those moments. Got everything situated. I set out a couple fans on a table with all my equipment. My head hits the pillow at 2 o'clock. Alarm goes off at 5:45. They did delay the start of day 2, thankfully. I thought they delayed it until 8 o'clock. They actually delayed it until 8:30. That would have been nice to know. I thought they were going to send out an email. I never got anything on Practice Score when I checked. I'm not sure if I missed it, but I got to the range about 7:15 because I wanted to double check zero because I've cleaned the rifle and I've taken the optic off and everything at this point. It was only off maybe a tenth, and I'm feeling pretty good at this point. Got some caffeine in me, got some food in me, got a little bit of rest. I'm pretty confident, falsely confident walking into day 2 about how I feel and the preparation that I've put in. And we head to our first stage and we start shooting, and it becomes very apparent very quickly that I am not 100%. I'm making silly mistakes in terms of how I'm positioning myself. I'm making really bad trigger presses, to be honest with you. Day 1 wasn't bad, but there was just something when I got through the first couple of stages of day 2, I developed a nasty flinch. And it cost me more than a couple targets. You probably hear me fussing about it on camera on some of those stages. Combination of the muzzle brake and being tired, probably. I'm not sure. It wasn't an issue when I was practicing, but I was practicing totally fresh. I had a good night's sleep. I wasn't run down. I hadn't just shot and, done everything that we had just done the night before. It probably has something to do with it. A bunch of the guys on our squads were shooting suppressed. That is 100% the way that I will be going in the future. But, we got through the day. I think the big lessons that I learned from day 2 was, 1, I have to practice rear support, whether that be tripod rear or tack table, or just using a bipod bag combo off of props that I'm not used to and using them on. I walked into this with the mentality of I knew that a lot of these stages were going to be shot better with tripod rear or some sort of rear support, but I also knew that that's not my strong suit, and I didn't want to practice that on the clock. So I made the mental decision, I'm going to bag it, and then I'm going to get the points that I can get because that's what I'm most comfortable with, and then I can work on that stuff in the future. And I'm mostly confident in that decision, except for the tire stage. I should have absolutely went bipod front, bag rear, and gotten the points that I could have gotten from the couple tires that you can shoot like that. The Tire stage didn't make it into this video. A couple guys were standing in front of the camera, so you can't see anything for the entire stage. But one of the guys even says, why is he starting down there and not down here with a bipod in the bag? And you hear somebody else, I'm pretty sure it was Shane, go, well, he's new. And he's 100% right. It was not the right decision to shoot the tires with the bag. It was the only decision I think that I've made at day 2 of the match where I'm 100% certain like that was not the right move. You know, you live and you learn. We made a decision, we moved forward, and we owned it. All things considered, I think we did pretty well. Managing a nasty flinch throughout the day, being tired. My rifle barrel did slow down more, so some of the shots were going low. It was throwing weird flyers every now and then. That could have been me for all I know, given how terrible of a trigger press I had. And I think you can see that too in some of the footage. You know, you can tell when I'm driving the rifle well on the prop because the reticle will only bounce up like a mil or 2. And then there's other times on the same prop in the same position that it goes like 10 mils up and 10 mils left. So I was inconsistent, definitely need to practice more, but I think part of that's just going to come with time. So when the dust settled, I think we landed 47th, and I'm not mad at that. Given everything that we kind of dealt with, I mean, this is only the second 2-day that I've shot. The first 2-day being Rimfire Nationals last year, and then this being the Two Rivers match. Also, the first Centerfire match that I've shot. I'm happy with that. You know, I'm proud of how we did. Definitely let some easy points go. We've got a lot that we're going to work on. Tripod rear, I'm definitely replacing this barrel and probably going to go 6-dasher. We're just going to jump in and go for it. It was great watching people like Zane and how they attack the stage and like the decisions they make versus the decisions that I was making. There's some stages that he shot tripod rear on that I never in my mind would have thought to shoot tripod rear, but Centerfire is a different game than Rimfire. And it's not to say you can't bag props in Centerfire. I think you're more stable and get a better read on the target when you're doing tripod rear or some kind of rear support. I think that was really the big thing, was when I'm practicing out here, when I'm fresh and everything's good, I'm driving the rifle consistently, I was able to get good feedback on the target. I could see where my misses were, I could see where my hits were, and I could make the appropriate, correction. I thought that that was going to continue. Well, as soon as I got tired, that all went out the window. There were quite a few stages where I was not seeing anything downrange because the reticle was jumping so much. So at that point, you're guessing. If you can't see your miss, how do you make a good correction? All things considered, I had a lot of fun. We learned a lot. I will definitely continue to shoot Centerfire. Unfortunately, this video is not what I wanted it to be as far as like an end product, but that's okay. When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, and this is the lemonade that we got. I appreciate you guys sticking around. If you've made it this far, big thanks to Squad 5 for the camaraderie and the help, and everybody that's kind of helped support me while getting ready for this match. We're not done with Centerfire, so I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks again.